Stephanie Contreras remembers the joy that her baby brother Timothy Lezyne brought to the family. But early on, they realized that something was wrong.
He wasn't developing like a normal, healthy baby boy would. You know, there was no crawling, there was no walking, there was no talking.
As Lezyne grew older, his family found they could not cope with his disabilities. They turned to Sonoma Developmental Center in Northern California. It's one of 5 state-run institutions for people with severe developmental disabilities, serving roughly 2,000 patients who need full-time care.
We thought at the time it was the right thing for him.
But one day, Stephanie learned that her brother had suddenly died of internal bleeding caused by a torn esophagus. She says an autopsy revealed why.
It turns out that he had 3 lemon glycerin swabs that were found, 2 that were in his stomach and 1 that was apparently on the bed that he was sleeping in.
Lezyne was paraplegic and wheelchair-bound. His doctor said the young man could not have put the swabs in his mouth on his own.
Clearly, he couldn't have put them there, and they couldn't go through the feeding tube, which they have no business even being anywhere near him at all.
Dr. Van Pena was a physician at Sonoma Developmental Center for 10 years, where he says he was disturbed by what he saw.
Every shift I had, there were injuries.
He said the staff often could not explain how the injuries occurred.
Often the answers revolved around the person did it to himself or herself. Very, very often, I would say, these explanations had no ring of truth or reality to them.
Ordinarily, injuries and deaths are investigated by local police, but California's developmental centers have their own in-house police force. In Lezyne's case, that police force waited over 24 hours before examining Lezyne's room. By then, any potential evidence was gone. Medical records were missing, others had details crossed out.
Our brother died, and they can't give us a reason why.
The director of the Department of Developmental Services, Terry Delgadillo, said she could not comment on individual cases because of patient privacy laws, but said that all incidents were taken seriously.
We keep track of every allegation that is made. We then investigate it internally, and we track everything that happens, and we're always looking for opportunities to improve.
Yet during a recent 3-year period, there were more than 250 confirmed abuse cases and over 600 other unexplained injuries among the system's roughly 2,000 patients. Rarely has violence against the patients led to arrest or prosecution.
That means that we didn't really find out what really happened. That disturbs me.
California Assemblyman Jim Bell is chair of the Human Services Committee. He says injuries of unknown origin should be further investigated.
As a parent of somebody that's developmentally disabled and as a legislator, it is cause for alarm. I want to know if those investigations were completed properly.
Take the case of Van Ingram. When he was a child, he was diagnosed with mental retardation and severe autism. The Ingrams turned to Fairview Developmental Center in Orange County.
It became very clear he's not going to be able to ever talk or function on his own in society.
But one day in 2007, Larry Ingram, a retired police officer, got a call that his brother Van had been rushed to the hospital.
He was in ICU, intensive care, Hoag Memorial Hospital. I've seen a lot of bad sights in my life, but this is one of the worst.
A neurosurgeon at the hospital said Van's injury was no accident.
He said either your brother was body surfing at the wedge in Huntington Beach and had a severe impact into the sand with a large wave, or somebody did this to your brother.
The staff at Fairview Developmental Center said Van had simply fallen out of bed. But Larry became suspicious of how the center was handling his brother's case.
I talked with the supervisor. The way he was handling it, the way he was acting, don't want to talk to you, can't talk to you, I became suspicious.
It turns out Fairview's in-house police force waited 5 days to begin interviewing potential suspects.
We had found out by then that there was no crime scene investigation at the time of the incident. We found out that no evidence was collected.
In fact, evidence was altered. In this sleep log, entries for the hour when Van's neck was likely broken were modified. Van's caregiver, Johannes Sotinko, admitted to changing the log, but the center's police didn't dig too deeply into why. An independent medical expert said that Van's death was likely a homicide, but his opinion was left out of the final police report. No one was ever arrested or prosecuted for Van's death. Director Delgadillo says her department is working to improve its police force.
We will be retraining every one of our staff to make sure that indeed they are providing the highest level of service.
But the problem may go beyond shoddy police work. Dr. Van Pena said he would document patient injuries by placing photographs in the medical records. But someone else, he says, would remove the photos.
I would go to see the patient perhaps at another time, and lo and behold, there'd be the area where the photograph was placed would be cut out in nice sharp edges, such as one would do with a scissors.
When he complained, Dr. Pena says he was asked outright by administrators to stop taking photos.
I believe that the administration wished to cover up the reality of these often graphic and severe injuries to patients under their care.
Dr. Pena was fired, he says, for refusing to cooperate. A federal court found evidence to support Pena's allegations, and a wrongful termination suit is pending. The state of California paid monetary settlements to the families of Van Ingram and Timothy Lezyne, but the cases remain unsolved.
There needs to be justice served, and I don't feel like there has been.
I look at his picture and it was wrong for him to die like that.